Hello, I'm Grin and welcome to this video. Throughout the 1930s, a widely used method of exposition by serials in cinema was that of the opening crawl. It was, in a sense, a primitive version of Last Time on Dragon Ball Z, but it wasn't simply there to remind those of what had happened in the previous episode, as also it wasn't wholly expected that every audience member had actually seen the previous installment. After all, it was the tail end of the Great Depression, and so not everyone could afford to go to the movies every single weekend, and on top of that, if you did miss an episode, you couldn't exactly Google it to figure out what was going on. However, since then, opening crawls have somewhat died out. Star Wars did it as a bit of a head nod to Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon, though unfortunately they did it so well that you can't really do it now without being accused of ripping off of Star Wars. We do occasionally see it, for instance Power Rangers did it back in the 90s, but it's definitely far less common. Which is a shame because some films could really use one. Namely Attack from Space, which for the first 20 minutes of the movie, I was a little bit confused about what was going on. You see, I did not realize it was a third installment of a series, it wasn't numbered in the title, and at no point in the film did they mention it, so when the lycra-wearing alien came down from space and started to tell the UN what to do, and the UN just went along with it, I was at first thinking, what's going on, why are they all so chummy, and why does no one here think the situation's a little bit odd? I had assumed that something had simply been lost in translation, as this is a dubbed Japanese film, but as it turns out, it is in fact sort of the third installment of a franchise. So would have it made more sense in the original language and undubbed, or would have all of the weirdness been explained in the first two films? Well, I honestly don't know, as I've not seen the first two films, but this is definitely a movie that could have done with a little bit of a recap at the start. Which kind of makes me wonder if other, more recent, non-numbered films are going to cause similar confusion in the distant future. I mean, once the Marvel Cinematic Universe has faded away from the forefront of the collective consciousness, how many people are going to watch Thor Ragnarok and have no idea what's going on, not realizing that it's the third Thor movie and the 17th installment of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? And so, when I'm elected dictator of the galaxy, I pledge to bring back the opening crawl. And also intermissions for movies that are over 2 hours long. I mean, come on, there are 3-hour movies, not including the commercials at the start, and when are we supposed to go to the bathroom? Just give us 5 minutes in the middle to pop to the loo and grab a drink. It is literally physically impossible to drink an extra large soda and not have to pee halfway through the film. It is irresponsible for the cinema to sell soft drinks so large and not give us an intermission. But I am getting wildly off topic, so let's actually go back to what the video is about, Attack from Space, which, aside from having the most generic sci-fi name in a series of 3 relatively generic sci-fi names, Atomic Rulers of the World, which is not bad, Invaders from Space, which is extremely generic, and Attack from Space, which is just another way of saying Invaders from Space, so not a great name for a third installment, is a dubbed and movie-length edit of 2 episodes of the Japanese serial Supergiant, which is something that often doesn't work out too well. For instance, the movie-length edit of the Buck Rogers serial Planet Outlaws doesn't really hold up to the serial, it cuts out far too much and adds a weird introduction at the beginning, and while this one, Attack from Space, is about the same length as the 2 episodes from Supergiant combined, so probably doesn't cut out much at all, it still presents some pacing issues because the way you structure a episode of a serial is different from the way you structure a movie, so simply putting 2 together, while it does make a movie length, it doesn't really do great for the pacing. So, what exactly is the story? Well, convoluted to say the least, but to boil it down into its most simple terms, the Zephyrians plan to conquer the Earth, the Emerald Planet plan to save the Earth, and send Starman, who unfortunately has nothing to do with David Bowie, down to Earth to save them. There's an unnecessary side plot about spies and trying to steal an engine and whatnot, which doesn't really make a great deal of sense because we're told that the Zephyrians have the ability to just destroy the planet, and yet for some reason they're trying to steal an engine from Earth, which for some reason is a higher tech engine than they have despite the fact that it's the Earth's first spaceship, and then for some reason, even after stealing the engine, they also abduct a scientist and his children as leverage, which still doesn't make sense because they have the engine already, and they have the ability to blow up Earth, which was what we were told their actual goal is, but I think I'm looking too far into it, and really all of this is just a catalyst for fun, silly sci-fi conflict, so as long as the conflict that follows is fun, silly, and sci-fi, well, I'm going to be perfectly happy with it. Which brings up the obvious question, is the conflict that follows fun, silly, and sci-fi? And to answer it rather simply, yes, God yes, it's fantastic. Once the film gets into it, it's basically entirely this guy's Starman in his cheesy sci-fi lycra outfit, flying around like he's Superman, blowing up space stations, and beating up space Nazis. And if that doesn't sound like something that interests you, well, I don't know what your problem is. I mean, there's a scene at the end of the film that goes for 14 minutes, and 10 minutes of that is literally just Starman beating up space Nazi after space Nazi. I kept thinking it was going to come to an end, but it just kept going and it was ludicrous and over the top. There's a part where he throws one space Nazi at another space Nazi, and one part where he shoves a space Nazi into a missile tube and then puts the missile in, and the entire time he's flipping around and laughing and flexing, and it's all made even better that he's supposed to be rescuing a girl the whole time who's about to be executed, but he just seems far more interested in beating up space Nazis. This scene and the film in general is just utterly absurd in the best kind of way, and I just had a lot of fun watching it, which is all I really look for in a movie. It's definitely not by any stretch of the word a perfect film, but it's also not trying to be. It knows what it is, a silly fun sci-fi film, and it doesn't try to be anything else. And I definitely had fun with it, and would certainly recommend it to anyone who likes B-grade sci-fi films with silly over-the-top action scenes. And so, Attack from Space. If you want to see a budget Superman in a silly sci-fi outfit beating up hundreds of space Nazis, well, then this film will probably be right up your alley. And so, with all of that said and done, as always, until next time, I have been and still am Grim Grindle. If you would like to follow me on social media, a link to my Twitter is in the description below, and if you'd like to join the Channel Grim and Grin Discord, the Echo Chamber, a link to that is also provided.
Starman sees the ship and calculates that it is nearing the Death Star. He has no choice but to risk the flames of the Death Star.